We are live! What is this? We have MMA news in today's live stream. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a few things to go over in today's live. Let's look at it really quick. The first thing we're gonna do, we gotta make the video. We haven't made it yet. It's already Friday. It's about midnight right now, and we have yet to post our underdog of the card for UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Lemos. And it's not an underdog I think is gonna win per se, but it's an underdog. Just say, for example, maybe Josh Parisian was like plus 500. Just for a theoretical crazy example, Parisian would probably be my underdog of the card. It's not based off if I think that underdog is going to win. It is based off of which underdog is going to have the most value out of any other underdog on the entire card. The only underdog I think's actually going to win is going to be Jinyu Frey right there, but it possibly could be someone else based off of the value. Also going to do a Neil Magny, Daniel Rodriguez prediction and breakdown, go a little bit more in depth to my prediction here, talk about potential 5-round fight between the two, talk about the UFC welterweight rankings. We got a lot of stuff to go into for today's video, but that's not it. That is not it as well. We have all of this. If you want to see all the MMA news early, obviously go follow the Instagram. But god dang, look at all this MMA news we had today. I'm still going. I am still going, and that is all MMA news just from today. I mean, that is at least more than 20 different MMA news topics today that we're going to go into at the end of this live stream. GOAT, says Death Punch 361. Pacey Sinclair, I'm more gassed than a 1940s Jew for Poirier versus Chandler. That is a banger in the lightweight division. But now we got like 8 people in the live chat. It's a good amount. Make sure to go down and smash that like button. Subscribe. Turn on those notifications if you are new. If you're not new, well, if you don't have the notifications on, turn them on, because we're going to be posting a lot of videos in the next coming days. But let's get into the underdog of the card. Let's get into it in the UFC's strawweight division. UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Lemos. Underdog of the card. Now, as I say in every one of my underdog of the week videos, it's not one underdog I think is going to win. Because obviously, if you watch my predictions, you'll know I do not have very many underdogs on this card. I see this being more of a favorites card than anything. Only underdog I got is Jinyu Frey, and I'm really not that confident on Jinyu Frey. A lot of the women's MMA fights on this card are very likely underdog picks, but like I say in all of these videos, it's not just an underdog that I think is going to win. It's the underdog on the card that has the most value. So Shayna Young, being at like plus 500 on the betting odds, has a legitimate chance to be the underdog of the card, is based off of the value that I perceive all of these underdogs to have. So I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to go all the way up to the top of this card to look at every single fighter and find out, based on value, what underdog has the most value at UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Lemos. Let's start with the first fight of the night. Tamires Vidal, Ramona Pascual, 24 and 34 years old, 6-1 and 6-4. Do I even want to tell you guys to bet money on this fight? If you watch the prediction, you know I am against betting on Ramona Pascual or Tamires Vidal. This is not a fight you really want to be betting on, especially as Ramona, all her value's gone. I mean, she started plus 200. Might have been my underdog of the card based off of value at that plus 200 price tag, maybe even at that plus 150. Now she's at minus 106. There's just no way I can come to terms with having Ramona Pascual as my most valuable underdog for this UFC fight. Now we got Carlos Candelario as the second underdog. this is a good underdog. This is definitely a good underdog. In my opinion, in Carlos Candelario, it's a very close fight. He's got good wrestling, good grappling. His striking is improving. He only losing inside the UFC to Tatsuro Taira, who is just an absolute beast, and he showed some good moments in that fight as well. Now he's fighting Jake Hadley, who is coming off a loss to Alan Nascimento. I can see this one being a close one, and I do believe that plus 225 on Carlos Candelario is one of the most valuable underdogs of the card. That is the key words there. One of the most valuable underdogs of the card. Carlos will not be my underdog of the card, but he is sure enough a very valuable dog on this card. Probably in my top 2 or top 3. Johnny Munoz Jr., Lidvik Shalinyan, minus 251 for Johnny Munoz Jr., plus 211 for Lidvik Shalinyan. I'm more confident, I would say, probably Carlos Candelario winning, given that they're pretty similar odds, plus 211 and plus 210. I can't really reconcile giving Lidvik Shalinyan that underdog with the card. Plus, I feel Johnny's got the better wrestling, he's got the better boxing. If you look at even their statures are pretty even, height and reach is pretty even, but Johnny's a lot bigger, he's younger, he's the better striker, the better wrestler, should be able to win, unless he gets caught with something weird like he did with Tony Gravely. Another good underdog, an actual underdog I think is going to win, like I said earlier on in the video, is going to be Jinyu Frey taking on Polyana Viana. But if you know about Polyana Viana, she wins a lot of fights where sometimes she's the underdog in, and when she's the favorite, she ends up going out there and getting finished or something like that. Started her career with a good win, rear naked in round number 1. Fought J.J. Aldrich, she was the favorite. Ended up losing a unanimous decision on that one. Lost to freaking Hannah Cyphers as a 3-1 favorite, which is something I really don't want to be looking at. And then she lost as a very slight underdog. Got 2 good armbar submission wins, but they're both in round number 1. The only way she's winning these fights is in round number 1. Emily Mallory and Maya Kuhanalu, however you say that one, she's only winning in round number 1. She got close to some submissions on Tabitha, but the later these fights go, the less likely Polyana Viana is able to get that finish. And Jinyu Frey, I do believe later on, as she's got a lot of experience going later on, as she's got 8 freaking decisions in her MMA career, she should win those later rounds. So again, Jinyu Frey is a very good underdog for UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Lemos. My number 2 underdog of the card. Carlos Candelario is my number 3 underdog of the card, but there's one more person I think has a little bit more value for this card. That's just a little bit better in terms of an underdog. Mario Batista, Benito Lopez. I mean, now possibly there's some value on Benito Lopez. Earlier on in the week, I was saying Parlay Murillo. I mean, easily minus 230, minus 240. Parlay Mario Batista. Now he's at minus 315. It's a pass for me. I probably would just not even bet the fight at all. But I feel very good about Mario Batista. He's one of my more confident guys on this UFC Fight Night. I'm not going to have Benito as the dog of the card. Shayna Young, I know. She's like plus 510. But it's warranted. It's warranted in my opinion. But Shayna Young should be that big of a favorite. So not really much value on that one. I think Miranda should easily win that fight. Shailan Nurdanbiak. I feel good about Shailan. I wouldn't bet that money line. I might sprinkle a little bit on Derek Minner. Those are pretty okay odds. For the money line on Derek Minner, he's got a good grappling game, good scrambling ability. He could win round 1, win round 2, gas out, and lose round number 3 and win a close decision. So that's a close one. Probably like number 5, number 6 underdog of the card, but nowhere near number 1 for Derek Minner right there. And with that being said, we got to it. We got to it, ladies and gentlemen. We're not going to go to the top. Tagir Olympiakov, Nate Maness. No, I feel good. Tagir is a friend and a training partner with Umar Nurmagomedov. He's already shown and said that he's going to use the same game plan and the same blueprint as Umar Nurmagomedov to win that fight. So I feel good about Tagir. Chase Sherman, Josh, I mean, there's barely any value on that plus money. D-Rod, What are the odds you're gonna get? Plus 100 on D-Rod? No, we're not taking that either. Marina Rodriguez, Amanda Lemos is pretty okay. Plus 190 is not bad. I would not be betting Marina Rodriguez, but that is not the most valuable underdog of the card. The most valuable underdog of the card, in my opinion, I'm finding it very weird to be saying it in person right now to you guys on this YouTube video, but I'm going to be saying the most valuable underdog of the card is a 38-year-old Mark Madsen. The dude is 12-0. He's coming off wins over Vince Michelle, Clay Guida, Austin Hubbard, Danilo Bellar, I don't know how to say that one, and a lot of wins on the regional scene. Dawson, almost losing to Ricky Glenn right there, beating Leonardo Santos in a fight. He was losing a little bit of that. Beating Edna Armani, Derek Mitter is also on the card, and Jared Gordon. The reason I'm going to have Mark Madsen as my underdog of the card when it comes to value. I don't think he's going to win. I do have Grant Dawson winning this fight by a decision, but if you're betting anything here, there's some significant value on a Marco Madsen by a decision. I mean, Madsen by decision is plus 260 on the betting odds right there. The money line is almost plus 200 right there. Started at plus 130, which is where I think it should be, and now it's almost plus 200. That is insane value in my opinion, given that Mark is the better wrestler. Grant does get taken down in a lot of his MMA fights. Dude, we are sleeping on this plus money on Mark Madsen right there. I do believe he's going to be the most valuable underdog of the card at plus 195, almost 2-1 plus money odds for Mark Madsen, who's the better wrestler, whose striking is improving every single fight, and who, if he does mix in that wrestling, could easily win this fight. It's a close one. I do lean Grant Dawson to win, but if I'm betting, obviously Mark Madsen. So, as for my underdog of the card for UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez versus Lemos, that is going to be Mark Madsen, number 1, Jinyu Frey, number 2, and Carlos Candelaria, number 3, some other guys as well. But those are some good underdogs in my opinion. If you're going to bet any underdogs, I think those 3 are pretty good in terms of the money. Thank you guys for watching this underdog of the card video. Go down and put your favorite underdog of the card, whether it's the underdog you think is legitimately going to win, or the most valuable underdog on this card. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and we'll see you in the next one. Alright, let's read them comments before we get into the Neil Magny D-Rod breakdown. Favorite upcoming underdog in the next month? In the next month, let's see. Natalia Silva, Teresa Bleda, Sergey Spivak, Brady Houston, Kevin Natividad, Danny Roberts, Charles Johnson. Jack Shore's a slight underdog right there. Ooh, that's iffy. That's iffy indeed. Marina Moroz and Jennifer Maya. Maria Oliveira and Vanessa Damopoulos. Vanessa is a little bit better on the ground. That's a close one as well. Iwan Kutalaba. I'm not liking too much on that card. Let's check UFC 281. I think Frankie Edgar is a very, very good one in my opinion. So Frankie's probably up there as a very, very good underdog. So Frankie Edgar, I would say Frankie Edgar. Honestly, Frankie Edgar is probably my favorite upcoming underdog. That he's probably going to be my underdog of the card for UFC 281. Little foreshadowing there for you. Are you calling the UFC 281 card? I don't know. I can't predict the future. I mean, I predict the fights, but I don't know. I hope to. I hope to, but sometimes things come up and I won't be able to sometimes over others. But I will try to, and I do want to do that card. Hey, Pacey, my boy, always there. Thoughts on Anthony Smith versus Jamal Hill? We're going to get into that in the MMA news portion of the live. I'm more privileged than a minority in 2022's World Culture. I don't know what that means, but all right. With that being said, we just did our underdog of the card. Now is going to be the co-main events prediction and breakdown for UFC Fight Night. Rodriguez versus Lemos. Let's get into it. Neil Magny and Daniel Rodriguez prediction and breakdown, plus the betting tips as well. You guys already know there's a few betting odds that have came out for this co-main event of UFC Fight Night. Rodriguez versus Lemos, which I think should be the main event. I would love to see D-Rod in a 5-round fight. I mean, 3 rounds with Mike Perry, 3 rounds with Kevin Lee, 3 rounds with Li Jingliang. I want to see what he looks like in round number 4, round number 5. So I personally would love to see a 5-rounder with Neil Magny and Daniel Rodriguez. We're going to look at these betting odds right here. Who to bet, who not to bet, what props to do. Maybe put either guy in a parlay, put a prop in a parlay. All of that is going to be near the end of today's video if you want to skip ahead. But we're going to give the prediction and breakdown for this fight between D-Rod and Neil Magny in the welterweight division. In the rankings right now, Neil Magny is at 13, D-Rod is at 14. Winner, I'm guessing, probably going to take on maybe a Vicente Luque in the UFC's welterweight division. But as I've already said, D-Rod's on a good streak right now, 4 in a row inside the UFC. Before that, beating Dwight Grant by knockout, Gabe Green, and Tim Means right there, and only losing to Nicholas Dalby in a fight I legitimately think he won. I do not know how Nicholas Dalby got that win. And then the Jingliang Lee fight, I think Jingliang Lee won that one. So we got a robbery loss to Nicholas Dalby, but he got a little bit of a robbery win against Jingliang Lee. So I guess it came back to him a little bit and helped him out. Neil Magny, on the other hand, very up and down inside of his UFC career, getting knocked out pretty badly after a very solid 3-fight win streak right there by Lorenz Larkin. Beat a former title challenger, Johnny Hendricks, lost to a former champion in round number 1. Then he went on a 2-fight win streak again, got knocked out again. I mean, this dude gets finished a lot in his losses. One thing I'm looking at right here is 2 losses coming by decision for Neil Magny. He's been knocked out 3 times and has been submitted 5 times right there, which leads me to believe, obviously, D-Rod is going to be much more likely to go out there and get the finish, which is something we're going to look at a little bit here at that minus 280 Rodriguez scorecards, no action. You know, we're definitely going to be looking at that one for sure. After all of that, I mean, he ended up going out and beating Jingliang Lee right there, who D-Rod also beat by unanimous decision. Anthony Rocco Martin, Robbie Lawler right there, all in the span of 1 year in 2020. Got out-wrestled completely by Michael Chiesa, outstruck Jeff Neal, out-volumed Max Griffin in a controversial one, and got out-wrestled by Shavkat Rakhmonov. A lot of people that are beating him, Michael Chiesa, Shavkat Rakhmonov, the more recent losses are him getting out-grappled and out-wrestled. The other losses earlier in his career, he was getting outpowered. He's getting knocked out. He's getting hurt on the feet and then submitted on the ground. A lot of his losses are due to guys that are very good in terms of the power in their hands and their finishing ability on the feet, or they're just really good wrestlers and really good grapplers. I don't think D-Rod is necessarily going to be going out there like a Shavkat Rakhmonov, like a Michael Chiesa, the 2 guys that were recently able to beat Neil Magny. I can't see D-Rod going out there and, you know, taking down Neil Magny, controlling him on the ground like Shavkat and Michael Chiesa were. So the only way I really see D-Rod winning in that case is going to be the other ways that Neil Magny loses, is when Neil's just out-volume his opponents, kind of like what he was doing with Max Griffin, landing the jabs and the 1-2s on the outside, some kicks, mixing in some takedowns of his own and things like that, getting some clinch work in there and things like that, and just winning a very close decision like usual. That's typical Neil Magny, just standing the outside, using that incredible 80-inch reach, that 6'3" frame and height that Neil Magny has and brings forth towards every single one of his fights, and just stays at range and wins a close decision. That's obviously the game plan Neil Magny is going in there with the most decisions in UFC history. But if you know anything about Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod Daniel Rodriguez, is that he throws a lot of volume. Out of any UFC fighter right now, he throws more volume than any of them. Sean O'Malley, we got freaking Kamaru Usman, I don't know, Jorge Masvidal. D-Rod throws more than any of them. He lands more than any one of those fighters, and that's what D-Rod needs to do. And the Jingliang Lee fight really wasn't letting his hands go, but in a Neil Magny fight, when there's really not that much power and opposition coming back at you, obviously there's some tip-tappery coming in there from Neil Magny and things like that. For Daniel Rodriguez, he needs to push the pace here. I mean, he needs to go out there round number one and do exactly what Max Griffin was able to do. Hurt him on the feet, potentially even get a finish in round number one on Neil Magny. Get a little bit of ground and pound and TKO Neil Magny early on in this fight. That's a good way for Daniel Rodriguez to win, is literally just to push that pace early on, get Neil Magny's back to the cage, pressure, 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 volume, 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 and land on that chin of Neil Magny and knock him out. If you're unable to do that, well, you're going to win round one due to landing all of those big shots just like Max Griffin was able to do 2 fights back. Round number two, you need to save enough cardio for round number two to do the same sort of onslaught in that round as well. Win that round by a little bit and then just survive round number three, win a 29-28 decision, or get a finish in round one or round number two. That's D-Rod's game plan here. Neil's the complete opposite. Survive round number one. D-Rod's trying to survive round three if it gets there, because he's going to be gassed out a little bit for going for the finish on Neil Magny, trying to land some big shots on Neil Magny. I do believe Neil is going to have the cardio advantage over Daniel Rodriguez. So D-Rod is going to be a little bit gassed in round number three. Neil Magny is just going to be trying to survive round number one. D-Rod's trying to survive round number three. Comes down to round two, because I think it's fairly obvious. Round one is going to go to Daniel Rodriguez. Feels fairly obvious. Round three, if it goes there, if D-Rod's not able to get the finish, and it does go to a round number three, I do believe Neil's volume and combinations on the outside, using the height, using the reach, will be able to get him round number three, and that's just where it starts to get weird for me, you know? As it's two guys in this welterweight division that is not a 5-round fight. Like I said, I wish this was a 5-round fight, but it's only 3 rounds, so it's going to come down to that round number two. Who the heck is going to win that round number two? Does D-Rod land on the chin of Neil Magny and he gets too overzealous on getting the finish on Neil Magny that he just throws his arms out? I don't know. We'll have to find out on Saturday, but my lean is not a confident one at all. I mean, this one, as the betting odds do suggest, minus 115 for Neil Magny, minus 105 for D-Rod. Exactly where I would have it. The slightest lean you can possibly have. If it were up to me, I'd be minus 111 Neil Magny, minus 109 Daniel Rodriguez, but it's a very close one. I think Neil's going to land a little bit more volume in round number two. D-Rod's going to land some hard shots as well, but Neil, that volume is just going to help him there, because D-Rod in round two, after he throws them out in round number one, is not going to be able to land as big of the shots as he wants to in that round number two, so it's not a confident pick by any means if you watch the confident pick video, but I think Neil Magny edges out round two and clearly wins round number three, while D-Rod clearly wins round number one. Probably one of the closest fights on the card, if not the closest fight on this card. I'm going to go to the Google Doc really quick for my confident picks on this UFC fight card, and I'm gonna change some things really quick right here. If you're new to the confident picks, we put a percentage on these are all the bolded people that I predicted to win. Neil Magny is one of them. I'm moving them lower. I mean, thinking about this fight even more, doing a more in-depth breakdown, looking at round by round by round and things like that, figuring out the strike and the kick and the clinch game and all that good stuff. I'm putting Neil Magny at 51%. This is not a confident pick. I am putting Neil Magny as my least confident pick for UFC Fight Night. Rodriguez versus Lemos. There's a very, very high chance D-Rod could go out there, rock Neil Magny early on and finish him, or use that rocking on Neil Magny, just win those rounds based off hurting Neil Magny and win a decision on this one. If you're betting it, do not bet Neil Magny moneyline minus 116. No, don't do it. Just don't. Oh, come on, guys, do not do it. If you're gonna bet anything in this fight, bet the Rodriguez scorecards no action. If Rodriguez gets a finish, you make some money. If Rodriguez gets a decision, well, you get your money back. If Neil Magny gets a decision, you get your money back. If Neil Magny gets a finish, you lose your money. So only way you win is if Rodriguez gets a finish. Only way you lose is if Magny gets a finish. I doubt Magny's going to get a finish. So minus 280 is my betting tip for you. That is the one thing I would like to do, is that minus 280 scorecards no action. You can parlay that with maybe a Miranda Maverick, Mario Batista, whatever you really want. That's all I would really do with that co-main events. And if you want to have the balls to do it and you want to sprinkle on that plus 140 Magny by decision, you can, but there's not the most value on a Neo Magny decision. It's an iffy one. It is a very, very risky bet, because if D-Rod's able to rock him on the feet, he can definitely edge out another second straight split decision in a row. So we shall see. It's going to be a close one again. If you want to do that decision, you can. It's not the most value on there, but I would say that minus 280 definitely is going to have some value. But who do y'all think wins, Neo Magny or Daniel Rodriguez? Put your thoughts down below, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Now, for today's MMA news, let's get into today's live stream. Let's see, in the UFC's light heavyweight division, Anthony Smith and Jamal Hill in the works for, I don't know. I mean, there's literally no date that has been put out there, but it is in the works. We saw a post from Sweet Dreams Jamal Hill yesterday on the live stream, and I told y'all maybe Anthony Smith. This was what I put like a day and a half ago. I said maybe Anthony Smith. That was my prediction for who Jamal Hill was going to be fighting, and boom, I called it, ladies and gentlemen. Anthony Smith versus Jamal Hill in the works. Per sources, the date is to be decided. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some top tier UFC light heavyweights, the number 5 and number 6 light heavyweights in the world, going at it. My guess is for February of 2023 on a UFC Fight Night main event. Winner gets the loser of Magomed Ankalaev, Jan Blachowicz, which I believe is going to be Jan Blachowicz, but we shall see. What do y'all think about that one? I got Jamal Hill winning that one by a late stoppage, TKO round 3, TKO round number 4. But put your thoughts down below in the comment section, Jamal Hill or Anthony Smith. Juan Camilo Ronderos will fight Clayton Carpenter at UFC events on February 18th, first reported by CC Legaspi. And this is going to be a good fight in 2023. Two guys coming off Dana White's Contender Series. Juan Camilo Ronderos, I was wrong, did not come off the Contender Series, but lost to a top 15 UFC flyweight in the world, top 10 actually, in David Dvorak on short notice. Now he's fighting a guy that is very, very hyped. Undefeated Clayton Carpenter, who's got really solid strike, and he's very good at making the comeback because he was losing on the Contender Series, made the comeback, showed his grit, showed his toughness, his perseverance, and came back and won the fight. So this is an amazing fight in the flyweight division. My early prediction is going to be Clayton Carpenter by a TKO in round number 2, but it's a banger in the flyweight division. I do expect a finish. Put your predictions in the comments. Next one in the middleweight division, Paulo Costa leaving the UFC. My miserable contract with the UFC was up in a few short months, as you guys know, maybe you don't. He's going to be fighting Robert the Reaper Whittaker, the number 1 middleweight contender in the world at UFC Perth, Australia, at UFC 284, and that'll be his last fight on his UFC contract. And he's saying a new boxer is coming to town. We've heard the news about maybe Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul, but you never freaking know. Anderson Silva's a middleweight. Paulo Costa's a middleweight. Jake Paul is also a middleweight. Maybe, I could be getting ahead of myself. Maybe we get Paulo Borrachinha Costa versus Jake Paul in a boxing match. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. Do you think that fight happens? And if it does, who wins? Borrachinha or Jake Paul? Next fight in the bantamweight division, Marlon Vera versus Sugar Sean O'Malley. To anyone, Sugar Sean O'Malley says, I'd rather fight someone who deserves it, like Chito Vera, in response to Henry Cejudo calling for Sugar Sean O'Malley to fight for the interim title against, well, Sugar Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley says, I'd rather fight for that interim title against the only man to ever beat me in Marlon Chito Vera. Can we get an interim title fight while Aljamain Sterling takes a little bit of a hiatus from the UFC till June of 2023? We get Sugar Sean versus Marlon Chito Vera. main event of a UFC fight night, 5 rounds of action. The build-up is going to be insane. Maybe you do it as the co-main event of a pay-per-view. I don't know what you do with it. If it's an interim belt, you could put it on a pay-per-view as well. But who wins, Sugar Sean O'Malley or Marlon Vera? And should it be for the interim title? Next fight, we have in the bantamweight division, I got it wrong, in the bantamweight division, Raul Rosas Jr. and Jay Perrin has been made official. I mean, it was in the works for a little while there. Wasn't 100% official, but now the UFC has posted it for UFC 282. The 18-year-old taking on the 30-something-year-old Jay Perrin at UFC 282 on the prelims. And my early prediction, I got Rosas Jr. winning this fight by a 30-27 unanimous decision, the same way I had him winning on Dana White's Contender Series. This is a harder opponent than Mando Gutierrez on the Contender Series. Should be a good one. Who do y'all have? The 18-year-old or a guy pretty much double the age, probably a little bit less than that, in Jay Perrin? I got Raul Rosas Jr. After that one, PFL in the UFC's, what is this? What does this count as? Light heavyweight division, UFC 282. Fight order has been announced. We got the main event, Yuri Prochazka Glover Teixeira, 205-pound light heavyweight championship on the line. In the main event, co-main event, we got the backups. I mean, we got Magomed Ankalaev there just in case Prochazka pulls out, Glover Teixeira pulls out. Ankalaev is getting ready to get right into that spot for the main event of this UFC pay-per-view, taking on Jan Blachowicz. We got Paddy the Paddy versus Jared Gordon on the main card right there. We got Darren Till versus Dricul Duplessis on the main card, top 15 middleweights, and we got 2 undefeated featherweights in Bryce Mitchell and Ilya Topuria, which could be a main event of a UFC fight night all by its own. Blachowicz Ankalaev, main event of a UFC fight night. Darren Till Duplessis, main events of a South Africa UFC fight night. These are all main event caliber fights, and so are the prelim fights. Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Chris Dawkins is the last fight on the prelims, and I'm saying it right now, that is also main event level. We got Robbie Lawler, former champion and former top 15, top 10 welterweight, Santiago Ponzinibbio on this card, Alexander Gustafsson taking on Ovi St. Preux, 2 former UFC title challengers just sitting in the middle of the prelims. We got undefeated 18-year-old Mexican prospect Raul Rosas Jr. We got Edmund Shabazian, top 15, former top 15 middleweight, taking on Dalcha Lunjambula. We got Alexander Hernandez, Billy Corantillo, top 15 middleweight, Chris Curtis and Joaquin Buckley on the early freaking prelims. Chris Brown versus Eric Silva, not TJ Brown, my bad. Ronnie Lawrence and Cameron Simon, and Vinci Salvador versus Daniel Da Silva. Every one of these fights I am looking forward to. And if you have Chris freaking Curtis on the early prelims, Edmund Shabazian on the early prelims, oh my gosh, this is a stacked pay-per-view. UFC 280 was stacked as well, but I'm going to be dead honest with you, I'm loving this card as well. I mean, this is almost to the level, and maybe even even better than UFC 280. Debate down below, is UFC 280 or UFC 282 more stacked? Which one is the better pay-per-view? Either way, it's stacked. Oh my gosh. Next one. In the middleweight division, Israel, the last style bender Adesanya, beating him in reference to Alex Pereira. That's what matters, like the belt? The belt? Frozen like Osa. Just beating him, a killer like him, that is what matters. He's referring to Alex Pereira, his fight in the main event of UFC 281 in about 1 week and 1 day. We're getting really close to it right now, and he's saying he doesn't care about the belt. He says if there's no belt on the line, I don't care. It's all about beating Alex Pereira, showing the doubters that even though I've got knocked out by this guy, I lost the decision to this guy, I am the better MMA fighter, and I'm going to go out there and win. Regardless of the belt, that does not matter. What matters is beating Alex Pereira. What do y'all think about the mindsets of the champion and the second greatest middleweight of all time in terms of legacy, Israel Adesanya? Put your thoughts down below. Next one in. I don't know what this is. The middleweight, light heavyweight, featherweight division. UFC ranking updates. We got Arnold Allen going to number 4. Calvin Kattar going down to number 7 in the UFC's featherweight division. And Josh Emmett is at number 5. So Arnold Allen is above a guy that was said to be fighting for maybe an interim belt with Yair Rodriguez, maybe to fight Max Holloway, something like that. Arnold Allen is ranked above him. So that means, based off of the rankings, he is more deserving of that interim title fight than Josh Emmett is. He's on a bigger win streak. He beat the same guy in Calvin Kattar better than Josh Emmett did, because I don't think Josh Emmett did so. So I think that puts Arnold Allen in a better space than Josh Emmett, gives him more of a shot to push for an interim title fight with Max Holloway, maybe with Yair Rodriguez, or with literally anyone they really want to do. Who should Arnold Allen fight? What are they going to do with Calvin Kattar? Because he's going to be out for quite a while. And losing this fight, moving down to number 7, I don't know what they're going to do with Calvin. But we got Khalil Roundtree going to number 14 in the light heavyweight division right there. You can see right now, they haven't updated it yet on the actual UFC rankings. But that's what it's going to look like. Jacoby's going to move to 15. Azamat's going to get out of the rankings. Jimmy Crut's going to say this. Jimmy Crut's going to go up one, I believe. And then Khalil is going to be at number 14. I don't think Khalil won that fight. A little bit of a robbery, in my opinion. But what do y'all think about these ranking updates? Next one in the light heavyweight division, Vitor Petrino replaces Jamal Pogues against Hafon Chukwi at UFC Fight Night December 17th, about 1.5 months away per Rafa Marinho 89. Vitor Petrino coming off an easy finish. Not an easy one. I mean, it was a little bit of adversity there, but I believe a second round TKO in a rematch against a guy he's previously knocked out in round number 1. This time, he beat him in round number 2 by KO. Now he's fighting Hafon Chukwi. He's a very good striker, coming off a loss to one of Israel Adesanya's guy. Carlos Ulberg is the name. Should be a good one. I do agree with these votes right here. 62% going Petrino. I lean Petrino right there by TKO in round 1, round 2. Put your predictions down below for this fireworks matchup inside of the UFC. Next one. Inside of the lightweight division, Beneil Dariush. Next opponents, we got a few possible outcomes for Beneil Dariush's next opponent. But he said, and I quote, "I guess right now my options are the winner of Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler." So Poirier gets a knockout, Chandler gets a knockout. You do Beneil Dariush versus that person. Winner, they fight Islam Makhachev. Winner fights Alexander Volkanovski, maybe Charles Oliveira, he says, or Rafael Fiziev. Personally, there's no way. There's no way he's going to do the Rafael Fiziev fight, because Rafael Fiziev needs to fight Justin Gaethje at this point. Charles Oliveira, I would love to see that. I would rather than anything, I would rather see Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush at UFC 283. So what do y'all think? Poirier Chandler winner or Charles Oliveira at UFC 283? Who does Beneil Dariush fight next? Let's see. Next one in the lightweight division, Grant Dawson says the winner of a super difficult fight versus Mark Madsen at UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Lemos 100% gets a ranked opponent after their UFC win. Right now in that lightweight division, we got guys like Dan Hooker, Damir Ismagulov, Jalen Turner, Ferguson, Drew Dober. Very high-level guys in this top 15 of the lightweight division. But you got high-level guys outside of that top 15 as well, like Grant Dawson and Mark Madsen. And the winner will be on a crazy, crazy unbeaten streak, both of which undefeated inside of the UFC. So yeah, I would have to say yes to that. I would have to say yes to that. And I'd say probably, since Damir Ismagulov is taking on, I believe he's taking on Arman Tsarukyan. maybe they can get the loser of Arman Saryukian versus Damir Ismagulov. Maybe Drew Dober, but I'd say maybe the loser of Damir versus Arman would be a good fight. But what do y'all think? Do they deserve a top 15 fight, or should they fight someone else in the lightweight division? PFL finals, Next one in the flyweight division, Tatsuro Taira, undefeated Japanese prospect in the UFC's flyweight division, is set to fight Jesus Aguilar at UFC Seoul in UFC Korea on February 4th via CC Legaspi right there. This is a very good fight in my opinion. Both are high-level jiu-jitsu wrestlers and grappler type of guys. Pretty easy prediction in my opinion. I feel very good about Tatsuro Taira going out there and winning the fight on the ground, but it should be a banger in my opinion. High-level scrambling and submission attempts and rear naked attempts, armbar attempts. I mean, freaking Granbies, everything, takedowns, jiu-jitsu, all of that. If you're a fan of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, wrestling, scrambling, all of that, you want to watch this fight. Tatsuro Taira, Jesus Aguilar at UFC Fight Night on February 4th. Who do y'all think wins? Put your thoughts down below. Thank you for the 99-cent donation, Hap Chandler. It is greatly appreciated. Next one in the UFC's lightweight division, Omar Morales will be fighting Mateusz Rebecki, coming off a great win on Dana White's Contender Series a few weeks or months ago at this point, and they're going to be fighting on one of the first fight cards of the year, might actually be the first fight card of the year, on January 14th, the UFC Fight Night, UFC Vegas 67. Omar Morales was undefeated at one point, got knocked out by Giga Chikadze, I believe, and has been losing to some other guys as well. Lost to Jonathan Pierce recently. There's one other guy he lost to as well recently, I'm forgetting the name of, but I think this is an easy prediction. Omar was doing very, very good. I thought of him as possibly being one of those gatekeepers of the top 15, sitting around like number 17, number 18 in the featherweight or in the lightweight division. But Mateusz Rebecki is going to steamroll him, in my opinion. He's going to take down Omar Morales. He's going to maul him on the ground, in my opinion. Those are just my thoughts. I think Mateusz Rebecki easily wins this fight. But who do y'all think wins? I got Mateusz round 1, round 2, by submission, rear naked choke submission. Put your thoughts down below in the comment section. Next one in the lightweight division, Dan Hooker is still confident that he can become UFC champion despite his recent losing skid. Oh my god, that is the funniest thing I've seen all day. That is literally the funniest thing. Dan Hooker right now is the number 12 UFC lightweight contender in the world. Just got knocked out by Arnold Allen in his last fight, losing to Islam Makhachev. If you beat Nasser Hakparas, he's not ranked. Lost to Michael Chandler, lost to Dustin Poirier, beat Paul Felder. That's a good win. It's a good win. Very controversial win. But as of right now, in the UFC top 15, the lightweight division, as we look at it right now, he has no wins against any of these guys. Every guy in the top 15 of the lightweight or featherweight division right now, he's got no wins over any of those fighters. None. Not even one of them. And even though he's on a 2-fight losing streak, the man is saying he's going to go on and become a UFC champion. He's still confident in that. Oh my god. Danny boy, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Dan Hooker, come on, man. What are you doing? You're not going to become champion. Come on, guys. You got destroyed by Islam. You got destroyed by Arnold Allen. What are you going to move up to welterweight and get knocked out by freaking Leon Edwards? Come on, Dan. What are you doing, Dan Hooker? You agree, you disagree? You should disagree with what Dan Hooker is saying. Put your thoughts down below. In the UFC's welterweight division, Conor McGregor is the greatest fighter in 2022. He has 0 losses in this entire year, whereas top 15 pound-for-pound guys like Robert Whittaker, like Kamaru Usman, a previous number 1 pound-for-pound guy, Max Holloway, Charles do Bronx Oliveira, high-level guys inside of the UFC, none of these guys have had 0 losses in 2022. They've all lost to people. Holloway lost to Volkanovski. Robert Whittaker lost to Israel Adesanya. Oliveira lost to Islam Makhachev. And Kamaru Usman lost to Leon Edwards, where Conor McGregor has yet to lose to a single person in 2022, which is why I believe McGregor should be number 1 pound for pound. It's disgraceful that he's not on the number 1 pound for pound list, in my opinion. But put your thoughts down below. He did beat Burns. That is true. Dan Hooker is garbage. He did beat Burns, but that was very early. Very, very early in his career. Next one. In the middleweight division, Andre Muniz is calling out Marvin Vettori. He said about 11 hours ago, anyone, just give me a date. Anyone at all. And Andre Muniz is like, anyone? Anyone at all. Let's schedule this for February. Maybe a UFC Fight Night main event. Maybe the February pay-per-view UFC. Is it 284, 283, something like that? I'm not too sure what pay-per-view is in February. But right now in this division, Andre Muniz is at number 10. Marvin Vettori is all the way up here at number 3. Cannonier has a fight. Whittaker has a fight. Alex Pereira has a fight. Brunson has a fight. Costa has a fight. Strickland has a fight. Jack Hermanson has a fight. And Darren Till has a fight. Everybody in the UFC middleweight division has got a fight. Except for Andre Muniz. Except for that number 10 fighter in Andre Muniz. And this is the moment the UFC needs to push Andre Muniz. Because Marvin Vettori, he keeps losing to Israel Adesanya. He lost to him twice by a unanimous decision. Then he lost to Robert Whittaker. He's not going to become a champion or anything like that. Now is the time to push one of the prospects. And the only guy that does not have a fight, literally the only guy in the top 15 that do not have fights, are Andre Muniz and Marvin Vettori. Let's do it. Let's freaking do it. Let's get this fight going. He says for February. I agree. Let's do it in February. Main event of a UFC Fight Night or main card of a pay-per-view. Doesn't matter to me. Put your thoughts down below on who wins, Andre Muniz or Marvin Vettori. UFC roster has cut Sergey Kanzoko, who recently knocked out Dwight Grant inside of the UFC, and then he just did not fight for quite a while and has been cut by the UFC. Maybe just ran out of his contract. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe he had a medical injury. I don't know. And they never really specified the reason why they're being removed from the UFC. Sometimes it's like a crazy circumstance. Sometimes they're literally just getting cut from the UFC. So I'm not too sure why he's leaving the UFC. But Sergey Kanzoko, anyone that does know him, a good Russian fighter, good finishing ability, solid power in his hands, is no longer in the UFC. Vettori is garbage. Got no talent. I agree. Doesn't really have much talent. Next one in the middleweight or welterweight division, Kelvin Gastelum not ruling out return to the UFC's welterweight division. It's something that I thought about via Danny Esgarat TV. Now, right now in the middleweight division, Gastelum's losing a lot of these top tier guys. Lost to Jack Hermanson by submission. He lost to, who was it? Marvin. Did he lose to Marvin? He lost to Jerry Cannonier. I believe he lost that when he lost to Robert Whittaker. He's lost to Israel Adesanya. He's lost to a lot of these top tier guys in the UFC's middleweight division, and he is a little bit big, a little bit chunky in my opinion. There is enough weight to take off of Kelvin Gastelum to theoretically get him down to the UFC's welterweight division, where right now, number 11 in the welterweight division, I think is much more likely to go out there and beat a Kamaru Usman than he is to beat a Robert Whittaker. He's more likely to go out there and beat a Bilal Muhammad than he is to beat a Marvin Vettori or an Alex Pereira. So I think it'd be a good move for Kelvin Gastelum if he's able to make the weight cut good enough and he's able to get down there without draining himself. They'll have to see if he's able to do so. I think that would be the move because there's really nothing else for him in the middleweight division. He's lost to pretty much everyone there is at the top of the weight class. So do you agree? Should he move down or stay in the middleweight division? That one's already made official in. Actually, we could do that one in the middleweight division. Brad Tavares and Gregory. You know what I'm going to say. You guys all know what I'm going to say. Barack Obama Rodriguez has been made official for UFC Brazil. UFC 283. This is going to be a banger of a fight card. Already they're adding some very, very good fights. And Gregory Rodriguez, Brad Tavares is definitely one of them. The number 15 middleweight versus the unranked Gregory Rodriguez. This is a freaking banger in my opinion. I mean, it was in the works for a while here. Now, the UFC Brazil Instagram has made it 100% official, and I think it's going to be an all-out war. 3 rounds of non-stop action in this battle, just like the Armen Petrosyan fight. This is going to be an absolute banger, a firefight, a war. I don't know any other adjectives to describe this fight other than God bless anyone that watches this, because you are witnessing history as one of the greatest fights in UFC middleweight history at UFC 283. It's going to be a banger in my opinion. I got Gregory Rodriguez winning by a decision. Who do y'all have in the middleweight division? Islam Makhachev could be ducking Alexander Volkanovski. In the lightweight division, Alexander tweeting on Twitter, "Are you a man of your word?" At Makhachev MMA Aussie flag. Let's make it happen. Sign on the dotted line. Hashtag UFC 284. Is Islam Makhachev getting some cold feet when it comes to the Alexander Volkanovski fight? Maybe he wants to do a Beneil Dariush fight. I don't know. What's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen? Are we going to get the Volkanovski-Islam fight? Or is something happening behind the scenes? What does this mean right here? Is Islam really not going to take the fight after he called out Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 280? Put your thoughts down below. In the featherweight division, Yair Rodriguez calls out Alexander Volkanovski. Are you a man of your word? We had a talk in Dallas. Everyone knows I'm next. Hashtag Perth. Hashtag Australia. Volkanovski versus Rodriguez for the World Featherweight Championship of the World. After Volkanovski's told Islam Makhachev, "Are you a man of your word?" Makhachev MMA. Let's make it happen. Sign on the dotted line. It seems to be that Islam might not be wanting to take the fight with Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 284. And Yair Rodriguez sure does want that fight at UFC 284. What is going to happen? We get Yair versus Volkanovski, or do we get Yair versus someone else, and Alexander Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev? What's going to happen here? Yair's calling Volkanovski out. Islam called out Volkanovski, but now is staying a little bit silent and not signing on the dotted line. What are your thoughts on this in the featherweight division? Mario Batista reveals he was supposed to fight Benito Lopez as an amateur MMA fighter, but that fight ended up getting cancelled. But he expects to get a finish at UFC Vegas 64 in their rescheduled bout on the prelims of the UFC Fight Night. And I would agree. I think Mario Batista gets the finish in round number 2. It's going to be a banger. Benito 10-1 as an MMA fighter. Mario Batista doing very good as well. I do expect this to be a good fight. Probably number 2, number 3 fight of the night. And it's going to be a good one. Who do y'all think wins? Mario Batista or Benito Lopez? Next one. In the welterweight division, Daniel Rodriguez has a score to settle with Kevin Holland at UFC Vegas 64. Or after UFC Vegas 64, he's going to be fighting Neil Magny. And if he wins that fight, I mean, let's just take a look at the rankings. If he was able to beat Neil Magny at UFC Fight Night, well, Rodriguez versus Lemos, that'll put Daniel Rodriguez at like number 12, number 13. They'll probably put him right below Jorge Masvidal on the UFC rankings. Kevin Holland is going to be fighting Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. If he's able to go out there and beat Thompson, they'll put him right around number 7, number 8, maybe number 9 in the welterweight division. And we might actually get a rescheduling of Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez in the welterweight division. I mean, right here, he says he's a dude that I have to fight. He's a chapter in my career that I just have to know what the is gonna happen or what would have happened. So even after this fight with Neil Magny, after the fight with Kevin Holland and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Daniel, I'm guessing, on the post-fight interview is going to be calling for Kevin Holland. What do y'all think? Who wins if they were to reschedule that fight between Holland and D-Rod? Who wins? Did they get the finish, or will it be a decision win? Last but not least, in the featherweight division, Steven Peterson and Sean Woodson have agreed to fight right here in the featherweight division, and they are both not the most high-level guys in this featherweight division, kind of like journeyman type of guys. They win a few, they lose a few, they get knocked out in one, they get hurt in a few of these fights, they look really good in a few of these fights. Neither guy is going to become a future champion, but they are very, very fun fighters to watch. Steven Peterson puts on banger fights every single time. Same thing for Sean Woodson. They're always going out there, putting on a show, putting on a good fight. And right here, we got freaking Steven Peterson saying, "Who do you want to see me fight next inside of the UFC octagon?" That was about 6 hours ago. And then right after that, Sean Woodson says, "Let's see, I'm down. I'd love to get in there with Ocho Cinco." I don't know, maybe that's the nickname of Steven Peterson. He brings it every time. I definitely agree with that. They both bring it, in my opinion. This would be a banger in the featherweight division. Should it get made, who wins, Steven Peterson or Sean Woodson? That is it for today's MMA news. Thank you guys for watching this live stream. Let's read the comments really quick before we go. Place Brendan Z has Holland winning. Shut the blank up, Yair. You didn't actually beat Ortega. It's a very, very fluke win. Very, very fluke win. Typing up an essay and listening. Love the content. Picking up my car that needed heck of work done tomorrow for $900. Jeez, $900. Jeez. I'm so pissed that we lost Shane Burgos. We still get to see him fight UFC fighters and Marlon Moraes over there in the PFL, and not that long. I believe it's like 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. That's an Obama drone strike in a hospital. I don't know. Not trying to be a brown nose, but I agree with Robert Tish's Jan versus Sugar was not a robbery, I believe. It was not a robbery. It was a close fight that could have gone either way. That close of a fight with that much subjectivity, I don't think it's a robbery. But thank you guys for watching. That's it for the MMA news. Another